Let's talk about the issue with shiny hunting in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Yo, what is up, you guys? It is Dominator here, and I am back with another Pokemon shiny discussion video, I guess. I don't know. But we are here to talk about a bit of a controversy in the shiny hunting scene for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Now, recently, a few creators were able to have early access. I don't really know. It was like a demo version. They got to play for like an hour at the Pokemon Company, and they found a whole bunch of new details to share with the community on Scarlet and Violet gameplay. But most notably, that sparked a lot of debate was when Cerebi, Joe Merrick from Cerebi, found a shiny Skiddo in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and he had confirmed for us that shinies are available in the overworld to be seen without having to do an encounter with the Pokemon. Unlike Sword and Shield, it's going to be a lot like Legends Arceus, where you can just find shiny Pokemon out in the overworld without having to interact with them. Now, for a lot of people, that's probably some amazing news, but to some others, it's not the greatest news they wanted to hear about this game. Most notably, what sparked the whole debate over what's better, overworld shinies or random encounter shinies, was this tweet by Agent V. They said, "I don't know how I feel about shinies being the overworld. Might be an unpopular opinion, but I enjoy the surprise of encountering a Pokemon and bam, sparkles. That's what turned me off greatly in Legends Arceus. I'm so afraid this is going to be the norm." A follow-up tweet that I had seen was from Smarpy, who said, "Not a fan of overworld shinies in a game where you can roam around and encounter about 20 Pokemon in under 10 seconds. I'm sure the game will be fun, but shiny hunting content will be a short-lived trend if they are so common to encounter. Just look at Pokemon Legends Arceus." Now, shout out to both of these creators. I will leave the links to their Twitters in the description below, so go give them a follow. Also, while you're at it, give me a follow. I also want to point out that Hoodlum Callum made a video in response to Agent V's initial tweet about overworld shinies, and they made some really great points, so I will leave a link to their video in the description below. Check them out. They made pretty good points for why overworld shinies are a good thing, and also they did shed some light on why it makes sense that other creators like Agent V or Smarpy are not so keen on overworld shinies. If you've been following me for a while, you'll know my stance on what I prefer. Do I prefer overworld or random encounters for shiny hunting? Now, if you haven't been following me for a while and don't know who I am and are watching me for the first time, how's it going? My name's Dominator. I do lots of shiny hunting content, so feel free to leave a like on this video and subscribe if you haven't done so yet. YouTube tells me about 86% of you guys who watch these videos are not currently subscribed, so just double check, make sure you're subscribed. If you haven't, click that subscribe button. It's totally free and it helps me out a ton, and thank you everyone for all the support so far. So, if you know me, and what I've been pretty vocal about my stance on overworld shinies. I do not prefer when shinies are just open in the overworld. So why don't I like overworld shinies? Well, saying I don't like them is a bit of a stretch. Like, I don't mind them. I think they're okay, but just it causes, in my opinion, shiny hunting to not feel as fun, I should say. Like, it's more of like it's not as fun of an experience for me. The first thing I'm gonna say straight up is that, like Smarpy mentioned, that you can encounter like 20 Pokemon in under 10 seconds just by running around a map. This is less of an opinion and more of a fact. In general, overworld shinies make shinies a little bit easier to find. Just in general, not saying guaranteed. You could still go a very long time. In fact, my first ever shiny I got in Legends Arceus took an extremely long time to get, longer than a lot of other shinies I have hunted for in even the older Pokemon games. But if you are able to see them in the overworld and not have to physically interact or encounter them to see if they're shiny or not, it does in general make shinies a little bit easier to find. I will say though, this is less about shiny rarity, but the rarity does play a little bit of a role in it, I will say. For me, overworld shinies take a bit of the excitement out of shiny hunting. Let me paint this picture for you. Let's say in Sword and Shield, you're running around the Isle of Armor or the wild area or literally any other route that's in Sword and Shield that has those overworld encounters. Now, Sword and Shield has overworld encounters, but they are not visible as shinies in the overworld. You have to physically encounter them in order to see if they're shiny. Now, let's pretend you're running around a route in Sword and Shield and you accidentally run into a Pokemon that you're like, oh, I didn't want to run into this Pokemon. But then all of a sudden, bam, in your face, it's shiny. It really catches you off guard. It really freaks you out, and it's really exciting to happen, in my opinion. Same with in-grass encounters. Like if you're doing random encounters, you're not really expecting a shiny to show up ever, even though you are random encountering. And that's because you can't see it ahead of time. You encounter it and then all of a sudden, whoa, there's a different colored Pokemon on my screen. That's insane. And it just brings that level of excitement up like so much more, as opposed to, say, Legends Arceus, you're running around the map, you're trying to find maybe a Pokemon, maybe you're not even shiny hunting, and you just see a Pokemon off in the distance and, oh, there must be a shiny over there. And then it sparkles when you get close enough to it. It's like, oh yeah, that was a shiny. To me, that just isn't nearly as exciting as going around and just like hunting for shiny Pokemon in the grass and all of a sudden being surprised when one finally shows up. Now, to a lot of people, this probably means nothing. There's a lot of people I know that love the excitement of finding shinies in the overworld in Legends Arceus, and that's totally fine. To me personally, I just don't think it's quite as exciting to see a shiny off in the distance that you were probably not even hunting for, because you can't really control what Pokemon you're encountering over and over again when they are only in the overworld. Another thing I want to explain about this is more of like the journey to finding a shiny. So let me just do a good old story time with Dominator here. Back in the day when my first ever main series Pokemon game was Pokemon Pearl. I had like spin-off Pokemon games for the N64, but I never had a Game Boy, so I never had like the original Pokemon games. So my first like main series game was actually Pokemon Pearl, and back in elementary school, there were so many people that played Pokemon games, and there was hardly anyone that even had shiny Pokemon. Shiny Pokemon were pretty much a myth at the time. So what happened? I still remember this. These are experiences you never forget. But I remember on the bus I would play Pokemon with my friend, and one day he ran into a random shiny Zubat in his diamond version. And it was like the craziest thing to experience, because if someone had a shiny Pokemon, it was one shiny Pokemon. No one like actually hunted shiny Pokemon. Shiny hunting wasn't a thing back then. At least at our age, no one really had a concept of shiny hunting. People didn't really know exactly how it worked, and people just knew that they were rare. So to see my friend get a shiny Zubat was crazy. And then a day later on the bus, he found another shiny Zubat, and it was just like the most unreal experience I've ever seen as a kid. And he even traded me one of the Zubats because he said he didn't need two of them. He just wanted to have one and be done with it. So I had this shiny Zubat for my friend, and it was one of the coolest things. Then fast forward, I'm playing through my Pokemon Pearl game, and I come across a random shiny Bidoof. Now, even though Bidoof is kind of a terrible shiny, it's not like the most exciting shiny at all. It hardly changes. I saw those sparkles, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. As a kid, I didn't care what it was. It was my favorite Pokemon that I had. Because it was the only shiny I had ever had that I had found myself, and it was just a new experience for me. So what I did is I leveled it up to level 100. I didn't even evolve it because I didn't know what B-Barrel looked like as a shiny, and I was like, you know what? B-Barrel's a bit of a goofy Pokemon, so I wanted to just level up my Bidoof to level 100 as a shiny because I thought it was the coolest thing. So my point with all this story time was that shinies were so rare, they were a myth, that hardly anyone had them. But fast forward, people started shiny hunting, people started getting more shinies because of it. People would grind for shinies and get them, and in my opinion, I feel like that's what makes shiny hunting special, is when you grind for something and it pays off in the end. It's like any other game. Like, say you're trying to grind to a certain level of a game, trying to grind to a rank in a competitive game, and then you finally get it and it pays off. That's how shiny hunting feels. You're grinding for a specific rare occurrence in a game that you can collect and keep, and when you finally get it, it pays off and it feels amazing. So yeah, shiny Pokemon used to be like crazy rare to get, and if you happened to get one, that was it. You were content. It was so cool to have just a shiny. But with shiny hunting becoming a little more mainstream, and games like, say, Pokemon X and Y adding like really easy shiny hunting methods that are more accessible to everyone, or say Pokemon Go having shiny Pokemon really common to get during community days, I feel like people's opinions on shinies have changed over time. Before, you got a shiny and you were super happy with it. Nowadays, a lot of people are not satisfied if they're not getting a lot of shinies in a very short period of time, which I think is a bit weird in my opinion. I don't know. I kind of disagree with that. I think the entire point of a shiny is that it is rare. It doesn't have to be extremely rare, but the fact that the shiny is at least a decent amount rarer than a normal Pokemon, I think that is the entire point of a shiny. A lot of people probably just care about the different color Pokemon, but when you got shinies like, say, Igglybuff, or even I hunted, and I know a few other people have hunted it too, the shiny Partner Cat Pikachu in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon doesn't even have a shiny sprite or shiny model coded. It looks like a normal Pikachu, but acts like a shiny. It still sparkles, it's still coded to be a shiny. Those shinies look hardly different, or in the case of the Pikachu, look no different at all. It's about having something rare. So when you take away the rarity of a shiny, there really isn't a point to it. It's like having, say, a blue Shellos versus a pink Shellos. Now, I prefer the blue Shellos over the pink Shellos, but I don't really care about either of them anyway. Like, I'm not going to be all excited that I found a blue Shellos unless it was a shiny blue Shellos. And I feel like that's something people kind of miss about shiny Pokemon, is that it's not always about the color. It's about the rarity. So I personally think shinies are more fun when they are more rare, but you know, there can be a balance. There can totally be a balance in it. I just hope that, like, in the future, there are ways to do, like, either random encounters or overworld encounters, or maybe just we get more old school styles of Pokemon games that aren't overworld. They're more route-based, and you do get random encounters. Because obviously we had Sword and Shield, and then we had BDSP, which BDSP was, like, really old school in terms of shiny hunting, and then Legends Arceus was like completely changed that formula. Obviously, shiny hunting methods have existed for a while, but you can still like control what you're doing with shiny hunting methods and still go after certain Pokemon that you want to go after that you think have cool shinies, or maybe it's just your favorite Pokemon. And even if you're fine raising your shiny odds, it's still a really cool experience to try to figure out how to get that shiny Pokemon as quickly as possible. Another thing I want to mention is like, it's not just about how rare like a full odd shiny is, because I've done plenty of method hunting. I do Masuda. I'm literally trying to get every single shiny Alchemy form, so I'm doing Masuda method for all of those. You can check the series out in the card right now if you want, but yeah, we do Masuda method all the time on this channel, and it's still fun because we're grinding for an end goal, and it's about the experience. So going back to what Smarpy said in his tweet about finding 20 Pokemon in 10 seconds, like, that's not really anything new for the series, because we've been able to do, say, like, horde hunting, or a lot of people, like myself, get multiple games so we can encounter multiple Pokemon at once. But it's more about figuring out what the optimal way of finding a shiny is. It's more about the experience than just simply finding the shiny. It's figuring out what you need to do to make your target the most common thing, make your target a very likely appearance to be the shiny that you find, how to get the encounters as quickly as possible. It's all just about problem solving, and it's a lot more of an experience that way, as opposed to running around a map mindlessly and hoping you get the thing you want, as opposed to, oh, there's a shiny Fletchling over there. I was kind of hoping for a shiny Venonat, but whatever, you know? I hope I'm making sense with all this. I'm just trying to throw out all these examples of why I don't think overworld shinies are that great. Again, it has nothing to do with shiny rarity. An argument that I see all the time about people not liking shinies in newer games is that the newer games kind of ruined shiny value, and they made shinies way too easy to get. I don't agree with that at all. I think shinies have always been really easy to get in certain scenarios, even from the beginning when shinies were first added to the game. In Gold, Silver, and Crystal, you get a free shiny Gyarados just by playing the game. And also in Crystal, if you talk to the old man at the daycare, he'll give you an odd egg, which has like an insanely high chance to be a shiny Pokemon. All you have to do is like reset a few times, and you'll probably get a shiny from that. It does not take that long. It's a very easy way to get a shiny. Generation 3, there really isn't a super easy way to get a shiny, but the encounter rate is really fast, that even just like playing the game and doing some encounters here and there, you'll probably find a shiny at some point. Then we fast forward to Generation 4, the first generation to actually add shiny hunting methods. Now, this generation added Masuda method and Pokeradar, and Masuda method wasn't like crazy. It took a while to hatch eggs, and the odds weren't like crazy high. But with Pokeradar, specifically in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, not in Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, it's actually a lot different in Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl. If you knew how to Pokeradar chain in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, you could essentially farm full evolution lines of shinies in like a half hour, essentially. Like, it's pretty busted, pretty easy to get shinies. And then fast forward all the way to Gen 6, that's when stuff like chain fishing was added, maybe even Friend Safari if you want to count that as being pretty easy. I don't think I would, but you know, It's just easier random encounters. And then Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon added the wormholes, which had like upwards of a 30% chance to be shiny when you entered a wormhole. Like, this is nothing new. Shinies have had extremely easy ways to be encountered ever since the beginning. So I don't think later games have devalued shinies or have made them too easy to get to like make them less exciting. And in fact, I think the whole like argument about shiny value is one of like the worst arguments you could give about anything. Shiny Pokemon don't have any value because they're just pixels in a game. The only value shinies have are all personal value, how you value the shiny you've found or you've obtained. Let me give an example for this. So I have a shiny Dragonite. I got it in my Fire Red copy. It was the first ever shiny that I've hunted. It took me over 24,000 encounters to get, which is like over triple the odds. And Dragonite is my favorite Pokemon. So when I finally got that shiny Dratini, it was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had in Pokemon. And then fast forward, I'm trying to shiny hunt a shiny Torkoal in Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald. And instead of finding a shiny Torkoal, I found a 1% shiny Graveler. So with the shiny odds being about a 1 in 8192 chance, and then on top of that, a 1% encounter rate means the shiny Graveler was about a 1 in 800,000 chance of appearing, which makes it like stupid, ridiculously rare. However, I would still, in my opinion, value my shiny Dragonite as a better shiny than that shiny Graveler I found, because the shiny Dragonite just has more of a story for it. It's more memorable. It's my favorite Pokemon of all time. It's the first shiny I ever hunted, even though I was guaranteed to get shiny Dratini, and even though the odds were just straight up 1 in 8192 as opposed to how ridiculously rare the Graveler was, I still think the shiny Dragonite is way cooler. That's just my personal opinion, but they're both my shinies, and I still value them pretty high. And fast forward even into Sword and Shield, I found a shiny Sinistea that was authentic with the rare mark, but these shiny odds were 1 in 1365 because I used the shiny charm. I still value that shiny authentic Sinistea way higher than my shiny Graveler, just because of the experience hunting the shiny Sinistea, finally getting it, and then on top of that, having an insanely rare mark on it so it can get a little tag when it's thrown out into battle. It just made the experience so much better, even though Graveler's base odds were like way lower to encounter. And I say the base odds are lower to encounter because I was using a method to increase authentic Sinisteia's encounter rate. Normally, authentic Sinistea is a 1%, much like the Graveler I am mentioning, but I was using a method that raised it to a 50%. So to get a shiny authentic Sinistea using the method I did, especially with the 1 in 1365 shiny odds, it is nowhere near as rare as the shiny Graveler that I obtained, just in terms of a random encounter odds. Now the rare mark added to it might make it a little more of a debate, but regardless, I still value the shiny authentic Sinistea that I got way higher than this random shiny Graveler that I got when I was looking for shiny Torkoal. So hopefully that paints a picture in your head of like how shiny value is really determined. It has nothing to do with what other people think. Shinies have no value. It's based on how happy you are finding the shinies. So that and that can mean you use method hunts, that can mean you use full odds. It doesn't matter. It's still based on how you feel about the shiny you've obtained. However, for me personally, when every shiny I found, like let me just go back to Legends Arceus, because this is like the biggest example. I shiny hunted like one Pokemon in Legends Arceus. I went way over odds for it and got it at a full odds rate, and it was a pretty cool shiny. Fast forward a little bit as I'm playing through the game, most of my dex entries became research level 10 in Legends Arceus, which raised the shiny odds. And then literally over a weekend, I was playing Legends Arceus and found like 5 or 6 shinies just randomly, just because of how easy it was with the 1 in 2048 odds as opposed to the 1 in 4096. And on top of that, the fact that they were overworld and I just had to get somewhat near them in order to find them. It just really took me out of it because it just wasn't much of a grind. It wasn't much of an experience. It wasn't much of a hunt. It was just random shinies. Now, don't get me wrong. Random shinies are always welcome because I always think that random shinies in older games are some of like the coolest things you can find. They just feel so crazy when you just aren't expecting a shiny at all. But that goes back to my point of overworld shinies. You kind of expect them a little more once there's 500 Pokemon you're flying by really fast in the overworld. So I don't know. One thing I will say is that the main issue I had with Legends Arceus shiny hunting is that the fact that they forced you to raise your shiny odds. Now, Absolblogs made a video on how to complete Legends Arceus without raising your shiny odds at all. So if you want to check that out, please do, and I will leave that in the description below. But he kind of really had to go out of his way to do that, and it was a lot of work. I personally hate the fact that they essentially force you to raise your shiny odds in Legends Arceus in a game where shinies aren't really that difficult to find, especially factoring in like mass outbreaks and just the fact that shinies are in the overworld as well. I feel like there wasn't really a reason to raise shiny odds. Now, if Scarlet and Violet doesn't do that, I think it would be totally fine. However, I still will feel not quite the same knowing that I probably won't be able to control what Pokemon I'm encountering, and I won't be able to really hunt the same way I used to, because it's more or less going to be flying around certain routes hoping the Pokemon that you're hunting for is the one that shows up shiny in the overworld, as opposed to doing like, say, repel tricks to increase your chances at a certain Pokemon. Or in Sword and Shield, even though there were overworld Pokemon, you could pick and choose what Pokemon you were running into to check to see if they were shiny, as opposed to just having shiny you didn't want after shiny you didn't want over and over again. So ultimately, this is my opinion on the matter. You do not have to agree with me, but I do want to hear what you guys think about shinies being in the overworld in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So leave a comment down below. Please don't hate on anyone for thinking one way or the other. It's all good. I totally respect anyone who does prefer overworld shinies. In fact, I think it even makes sense for Pokemon to be shiny in the overworld in an open world game like Scarlet and Violet. Maybe it's more of a debate on whether or not I like an open world Pokemon game. I'm not sure. We'll have to see how it goes once the game comes out. I'm still going to get the game. I'll still probably shiny hunt in it. And honestly, I just hope that I can keep the shiny odds full odds just to make it a little more of a challenge for me personally. So let me know what you guys think about overworld shinies and what you prefer. Do you prefer random encounter shinies or overworld shinies? So that is gonna be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, ring those notification bells, all that good stuff. Be sure to join the domination, and I will see you in the next video.